this week on Pages and Pages, we're going to talk about Sabriel, Liriel, and Abhorsen. I don't know how to say that word. Abhorsen is how I'm going to say it. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. It's okay. I don't mind. So this is the young adult series by Garth Nix, and I read it in about 5 days because it's so good. These are fantasy novels based around a world where there's a really old kingdom that has a lot of magic and a really normal kingdom, I guess, what we'd be familiar with, that feels very modern and doesn't believe in magic at all. And so there's a lot of cool interactions that happen here. But what really makes this is all the lovely characters. What I really enjoyed about this series were the fantastic female characters. Sabriel and Liriel both are awesome heroines and worthy of following into battle. I mean, you want them on your side. What I mean, they have powers over the dead, and they make sure that the dead stay dead. So if you like Persephone, if you like any sort of the underworld kind of thing, this is a good series for you to check out. At first I thought it might be kind of scary because I'm not really into dead things or horror or anything like that, but this was handled really well. And aside from feeling cold the entire time I read them, because everything is cold apparently, they were really excellent. One of my favorite parts in these books was the whole middle bit. Can I just say that the Claire have the most awesome library possibly I've ever read. It is in the shape of like a nautilus that spirals down, and talk about dangerous libraries. This one has fantastical beasts and mythical creatures and all kinds of dangerous things. So much so that the librarians wear swords and have magical wards around them to protect them. So that's really cool. Awesome library. So I really enjoyed that part of the book. Here's the thing that I was thinking about while I was reading them though. As some of the characters venture into death while not actually being dead themselves, you get a kind of map of what death looks like in this world, and it's really detailed. It kind of goes in 9 different stages or levels, layers, circles, whatever you want to call it, until you actually go to the final death. And there's a lot of precedent for this kind of a structure for death in literature, most notably probably in Dante's Inferno. You get this layers of hell kind of thing that the dead all sit in, and often with the images of rivers. Okay, so the way that death is structured in these books reminded me a lot of the way that Socrates framed death and the shape of the world and everything in Phaedo, which is one of Plato's dialogues that is the famous one where Socrates drinks the hemlock and dies, but not before explaining how the soul is immortal and what happens after you die in a very interesting mythos kind of thing. So I went back and reread that, and sure enough, there are a lot of similarities between the way that Plato structures death in a series of rivers and that sort of thing, and the way that Garth Nix chooses to structure death. And so I'm willing to bet that there is a lot of influence there, right up to the point where they're all the way in the deepest, darkest bit of death and they see the stars, which is very Platonic in its structure. So it was kind of an interesting correlation that I saw and wanted to point out. You can give them both of these things a read and let me know what you think. Do you think that theory holds water, if you will? What concerned me initially about all of this was that there was such an emphasis on death and such a detail about how all of that was structured, that I was concerned that there wasn't an equivalent creation mythos to go with it to kind of balance out the two ends of life, right? But I came to realize that the way that they deal with magic and all of that kind of really balances that out. So you do get that kind of cyclical sort of structure, which is really interesting, and I enjoyed reading about it in like a young adult format instead of like dusty old philosophy books. would recommend. They're very good. I keep looking at them, but they're over. I already finished them. There's nothing more to read. Actually, that's not true. There's actually a series of short stories that kind of deal with some of the more minor characters that you can get a bit more about them. I just haven't found that one yet. So that's it for this week on Pages and Pages. I really enjoyed reading Sabriel, Lyriel, and Abhorsen. That's all I wanted to say. Mostly I wanted to talk about Plato and his rivers, and then Sabriel and hers. Thanks for watching.